Welcome to the Korea Pro podcast. I'm your host, Jeongmin Kim, the editorial director of Korea Pro.
And I'm John Lee, the editor of Korea Pro.
Join us for a weekly 15-minute conversation as we dive into the most pressing stories shaping South Korea and dissect the most complicated ones for you.
From politics to culture, technology to society, we've got you covered. So stay ahead of the curve and never be sidelined again.
So get ready for a fresh perspective on South Korea's news. This is the Korea Pro podcast.
Okay, it is Thursday, April 25th. We are recording at almost noon, and Jeongmin is back from a week-long vacation. It's great to have you back.
Yay.
And all right, and now that you're back, let's throw you off into the deep end of the pool.
All right, I came back on Monday and I had to catch up on everything that happened while I wasn't reading news and took my Yonhap alert off. And it seems nothing changed that much, although there were so many minute developments in the domestic politics after the election.
A lot of things happened and yet nothing changed.
Right. Nothing changed aside from how, the presidential approval rate went down again and Lee Jae-myung, the leader of opposition Democratic Party, starting to pressure Yoon with a whole lot of different pledges that he actually made during the election for Yoon to actually follow as well, which includes 25만 won, 250,000 Korean won cash voucher
which is about $180.
And not households, but
to
per
every
person.
citizen. Yes. Now, to be fair, this isn't Yoon's pledge. This is Lee Jae-myung's pledge. And he's saying that, he made this pledge to give out this cash voucher, so 250,000 won, to every single South Korean citizen. And he's pushing the president to do it.
What was the context of him bringing this issue up during the election? What was the justification for this pledge?
Well, this pledge is a watered-down version of his previous pledge. Back in 2021, when he was running for president, he wasn't talking about 250,000. He was talking about 1 million won for each person. And that's because when he was governor, he was a big proponent of the universal basic income, the UBI, which is giving out cash to citizens regardless of your income or regardless of your status, so that everyone will be able to have additional cash that they could spend.
Per month or per year?
Well, ideally, I think Lee Jae-myung wanted this to be a permanent thing, to be an ongoing thing until the end of this country or whatever it is.
So at the time, 1 million won was like per year?
I believe it was 1 million won per year. I might be wrong on that number, but I do remember that he was talking about 1 million won. But now that he is the opposition leader, he's not talking about 1 million won. Now he's talking about 250,000 won per individual. But still, this will cost about $9 billion if we give it to every single South Korean citizen.
Does this include children as well? It's just adults, right?
I'm not quite sure what the age limit is.
I don't think he was that specific about it, but 국민당. Per person, yeah. And so there were some people saying that this could be, if there's a household of 4 people, that this would be 1 million won then in that sort of case. But I'm not quite sure if they're talking about infants or if it'll have to reach a certain age. Right.
But that's the thing. This is politics. And Lee Jae-myung is going in with this maximalist position.
Also, this is very much watered down from the initial principle that he was sticking to the universal basic income. This is so much different from that, actually.
It is not the same thing that he was asking for. Right now, this 250,000 won voucher that he's promising sounds like a one-time thing. He didn't say that this will have to be given out every month or every year. He's only talking about this like as though it's a one-time payment.
Okay, it sounds pretty populist on the surface, but what's the expected cost of this?
Well, Lee Jae-myung himself is saying that it'll cost about $9 billion. So if we do the math and assume that all South Korean citizens are given this single payment.
And what's the expected benefit to the South Korean economy?
Well, that's the thing. We're not quite sure. Now, in the piece that I wrote about this, I quoted a couple of economists. And those economists were saying that with these cash vouchers, if they are given the way that they were during the pandemic. Now, I'm not quite sure how it was with you, but when I was living in Gyeonggi during the pandemic, I got this gift card or gift voucher from the government.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was only allowed to spend it within Gyeonggi.
Right, so that it boosts local economy, right?
Sure.
Boosting spending.
So if we go with that precedent, what happened at the time was people spent it a lot on consumables, food.
Right.
But that might not be the same case this time around because back then, people were social distancing, people were staying at home, they couldn't go out to restaurants. So what did they do? They went to the grocery store and they bought food. But now we don't have a pandemic. So with $180 to spend, maybe you would go buy food, maybe you would spend a night at a hotel. We're not quite sure how this will affect the economy this
So
time
on
around.
personal level, imagine that you received this thanks to Lee Jae-myung. Where would you spend this much money?
Well, I'm a homebody, so I would just buy groceries, really. But other people might spend it differently. They might go to a cafe or restaurant and have a nice meal. They might spend a night at, Shil Hotel for a night or whatever. So we're not quite sure how this will translate. But because this is such a small amount of money, it's $180, it's not going to benefit the manufacturing sector. It's not going to benefit, semiconductors or shipping, for example.
So which sectors will actually benefit? So that we don't know is what you mean, right?
So if we go with past precedents, it will almost entirely benefit consumables. But we're not quite sure how it will play out this time around because, we're not in a pandemic anymore.
I see. So what are the main controversy politically and from the perspective of the economists right now, aside from what you just mentioned?
Well, the main controversy right now is not so much economics. It's really politics.
Right.
And this is where Yoon is saying you're being populist and Lee Jae-myung is saying, no, I'm not being populist. I'm trying to just help the people. But, they're both being populist. Kettle meet pot.
Right.
And so Yoon is being populist in a different way. He's trying to support small businesses. He's trying to support semiconductors. Lee Jae-myung is trying to support what he's saying, the citizens of every single person.
Explain a little bit why Yoon part is populist.
Well, in his sense, what he's doing is trying to support small businesses, and of course, and not just small business, but the big items. The big items on the agenda are semiconductors, and as we've mentioned this before, semiconductors are the pride and soul of this country, not just for the economy, but for the Korean people themselves. And so, by aiding these companies, he is also trying to support areas, sectors of the economy where he knows that the people will say, hoorah, we like this sort of thing. So it's also populist. So it's just which blend of populism do you prefer?
Well, that summarizes the South Korean politics in the past few years, actually. But why is Lee Jae-myung bringing this up now that the election's over to Yoon?
Well, this election is over, but he has another one to look forward to in 2027.
Presidential election.
He wants to be president. He wants to be able to go to the president and say, hey, we want this, and I promised this to the people, so I want to deliver. Now, he's going in with a maximalist position. He knows that the president will not accept this. But regardless of what eventually happens with the negotiations, whether he gets everything that he wants or whether Yoon will meet him halfway and say maybe not to everyone but to the lowest 30% of income earners, whatever the outcome is, Lee will still be able to say, I delivered on my promise.
Right, and he can start writing this, let's say Google Doc, a document of all the things that he's done right in the next 3 years so that he can sort of prove that and write that into his poster in 2027?
Exactly. He'll be able to say, hey, I make a promise and I deliver.
I'm a practical politician who actually benefits people's
right, and that's
daily
gonna be,
life.
That's going to be a sales pitch for the next 3 years.
It's very interesting. Let's move on to topic 2, less domestic, a bit of a defense and business sort of angle. There was a summit this week between Romania and South Korea in Seoul. The president came, and there were some defense exports and other sector related deals, or more like past deals sort of procedure going on sort of thing this week. Let's start with Romania, actually. What were some of the sectors that benefited this time?
Well, I like to think of this as customer service, aftercare. Back in November, Romania ordered surface-to-air missiles from Korea. I forget how much the deal was, but it was the Shingung surface-to-air missiles. And South Korea has also been trying to sell their K9 tanks, K2 tanks to Romania. But this one has not been that successful because if I'm not mistaken, at the time, Romania was also keeping their eyes open to buy American Abrams tanks. But regardless of that, South Korea has, of course, been trying to sell more of the weapons. But when it comes to Romania, it's not so much weapons that South Korea really has their eye on. It's really nuclear energy cooperation.
Nuclear energy, nuclear power plant.
Yeah, Romania really wants to expand in nuclear energy, and South Korea wants to sell it.
And if Romania wants to, or any other countries want to get it, they should be doing it right now, because if 2027 come and DP wins presidency, that might just...
Well, I'm not sure if the DP would be opposed to exporting nuclear energy,
Right.
whereas they might be opposed to having more nuclear plants in Korea. They won't oppose exporting it. But what really is the issue right now is the lawsuit that is between KHNP and KEPCO, the two Korean energy companies, and Westinghouse Electric. Now, last year in October, one of the U.S. courts sided with Korea, and Westinghouse lost. And Westinghouse at the time said that they would appeal the sentence, or whatever it was that the judge
ruling?
said. The ruling, thank you. But since then, I have not heard of any appeal. Now, I'm not quite sure what's going on within Westinghouse, whether they're talking to their lawyers and trying to come up with a more concrete strategy to win the next round. But so far, there has been no news of an appeal just yet.
What was the trial about?
It was about the APR 1400 reactor that South Korea sells.
Which is?
Which is the nuclear reactor within South Korea's nuclear power plants. But Westinghouse is saying that that's proprietary technology.
I see.
Now, that's where the lawsuit comes in.
I see.
And so South Korea won the first round.
Right. And that was a very awkward one as well to watch.
Right. And these are energy companies from two allied countries.
Exactly. And that was during, I think, like before or after the Yoon state visit.
It was, and it was an ongoing thing. But, we might be allies, but we're also competitors.
Right.
And so, again, South Korea won in October, but we're not quite sure if or when Westinghouse will have this lawsuit. But with this sort of meeting with Romania, it seems like South Korea and Romania is trying to move forward with it, but I'm not quite sure what will happen of it.
I see. And other stuff included things like military education and military medical help, which sounds all very...
it sounds vague, doesn't it?
It's vague. And also, like, it seems in the past few weeks since the doctor strike, and South Korea has been utilizing the military medical system and also the personnel for non-military uses. They started also punching out these press releases on, giving out AI medical system, military medical system to
the UAE.
Yeah, stuff like that.
And that just boggles the mind. Why would we donate anything to a country that is as filthy wealthy as the UAE? But, whatever.
Right. It looks like the military medical system thing is maybe South Korea's one of new things where they see it as one of their, powers that they can utilize to make a nice gesture sort of thing. But it's
The
not
first one
making
free
that much
sort of thing.
headline. Yeah. And back to Romania, the Shingung one. Where will Romania use this for?
Well, as everyone knows, Eastern Europe is a bit of in an arms race right now because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so they're trying to get as much weapons defenses as possible. And so that's where Romania's real concern lies.
I see.
Unlock the full Korea Pro experience by joining our community. Stay informed, stay ahead, and never miss a beat on Korean affairs that matter. Subscribe today and transform the way you understand Korea.
And topic 3, Cho Kuk's fate.
All right, so this one is really all you, because I'm reading this and South Korea's election laws just constantly confuse the hell out of me. Why isn't his party doing as well as we thought he would on election day?
Well, they did well when it comes to taking as much seats as possible. It was a little bit over what they expected, 12 seats, right?
Right, 12 seats.
But the thing is, the initial ambition to, once you get into the National Assembly and to have an actual authority, to have a voice, to negotiate with other major parties and the government, is to become 교섭단체, negotiating group.
Okay.
And the 교섭단체 threshold is 20 people, 20 seats.
And they only got 12.
And also, there was no way Cho Kuk's party was going to get 20 seats.
Yeah,
Maybe,
that was very overly optimistic.
Yeah. The polls were suggesting, and the pollsters were suggesting the maximum level would be like maybe 15 seats.
Right.
So it was a no-go from the start. But then I don't know, at the end, Cho got a little bit greedy and started thinking about maybe we could become a 교섭단체 negotiating group. And then the hopes were in the satellite party, because this is also like a whole lot of nitty-gritty details. But the gist is, there was a satellite party of both major parties,
Sure,
right? The
right.
DP satellite one and the PPP satellite one. They are merging now, as
Yeah,
expected.
they're going back to their original parties.
Right. Just to brief anyone who did not catch up on the whole rules thing, this is the satellite party system was created initially to give more seats to minor parties, but then both parties circumvented this rule and fielded all of their proportional representatives into their satellite parties.
As critics said would happen.
Right, but DP, at least to keep to on the surface level to this principle about minor parties, they did include a few minor party leaders into their Democratic Union Party. So although they're merging, these minor party people were supposed to leave, and they at the end decided to leave yesterday.
Yeah, they're going back to the original parties.
They're going back. So Yong-hae of Basic Income Party is going back, and Shinbodang lawmakers also going back. But the variable was 시민추천. It was like a citizens' recommendation seat. There were two of them, and Cho Kuk wanted these people to come to his party
to bolster his numbers, of course.
Yeah. So, but then at the end, of course, they chose DP.
Right.
Why would you choose a minor party?
Join the winning side.
Yeah, join the winning side. So they joined the DP. So DP seat number is now at 171.
Right, because they lost their proportional seats and they're now going back to their actual district seats.
Right, and if Cho really wanted this 20 seat threshold, he had to get all of these people into Cho. It was a no-go from the start.
So what is happening to Cho then? So he's got these 12 seats, but he's not part of the negotiating team or the negotiating bloc, if you can call it that. So what power does he have? I mean, sure, Cho Kuk and Lee Jae-myung were allies because they have common interests, investigate the president, the first lady, the former defense minister. But what use does Lee Jae-myung have for Cho Kuk now?
Nothing.
So Cho Kuk is, left out in the political wilderness with his 12 seats?
Well, not nothing. For now, on a certain agenda that you mentioned, like the special investigation into the First Lady, special investigation regarding the Marine that died and the abuse of power of the defense minister allegedly. Stuff like this, they're still allied on a certain agenda, and the projects that they will probably immediately pursue in the next year or so, they will remain allied until then. But then what happens next? As Lee Jae-myung reaches 2027, he will focus on presidency after maybe 2026.
And he will want to share the limelight with Cho Kuk.
Right, and in South Korean politics, once you are a party leader of a very successful general election, your position is secure. You don't need anybody else.
Right.
Unless Lee Jae-myung ends up going to jail. Really.
Which he might not, really.
He might not. And then if he continues to secure his leadership in the DP, he might not really need Cho Kuk's support unless something happens and Cho becomes immensely popular compared to Lee. So for now, Cho is still trying to pursue this image of a sort of like a similar level influential leader sort of position by suggesting things like, oh, I want to be in this leader-to-leader meeting
with the president
as like a 범야권 opposition bloc leader sort of meeting. But then is there any reason for Lee Jae-myung to really say yes to that? No.
If he were an idiot, he would say yes, but he's no idiot.
He's a very pragmatic man, and there's no way he's going to say yes to this. So Cho Kuk's sort of just tweeting into the void right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's essentially back where he started, except with 12 additional proportional seats.
Back where he started, but still, to be fair, much better, I guess, stepping stone for him to become.
He's got a
something else in the.
He's got a small platform.
Right. It's actually like to compare. It's better than not having any seats himself and remaining as like former justice minister.
Right.
Like he is a lawmaker now, so maybe he has that. But aside from that, in terms of leadership position within the opposition bloc, Lee Jae-myung is not giving up on that.
Of course not. All right, so week ahead, we have to talk about what happens in the presidential office. Last week, when you were gone, Juna, Lena, and I talked about how everyone resigned. Now, again, you've come back since Monday and you've been monitoring this. What are the latest developments in this area?
there's not much development yet in the past week, aside from two very major ones. One is the 비서실장, chief of staff. This is one of the highest ranking positions in South Korea, especially in the presidential office. It's sort of like a, what do you call it?
Almost like a co-president.
Like 사감 선생님 of the presidential office.
Right.
사감 선생님.
Um,
Like a
the
headmaster.
headmaster, the coach.
Yeah. So basically, the highest of the highest in the presidential office, who is closest to the president, this role is considered the president's mouth. And traditionally, this role is expected to give frank advice when needed. Although in the past 2 years, that didn't happen. And that was a problem.
Yeah, that was an understatement.
Right. It was more like the chief of staff conveying very controversial and problematic presidential messages to various people, including the former PPP leader Han Dong-hoon.
Yeah, that last chief of staff, he was more like an errand boy rather than someone who was actually going to give the president advice that he needed to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So that tarnished the party and the president's image a lot. So there's a lot of burden for the next chief of staff. And this job went to Chung Jin-seok, a 5-term lawmaker at the PPP, very influential politician in South Korea, very powerful family background as well. But he lost his seat in his district to his rival that he won over last time.
So he's got time on his hands. So he's perfect for this job, I guess.
Right. And he, allegedly, a lot of media reports praise him for doing something called ladder politics, bridging the gap and not taking sides within the conservative party. People might have forgotten, but there has been a very big intra-party strife during Lee Myung-bak and Park Geun-hye era.
It's been going on for a long time.
Right, and it sort of transitioned into a new type of strife right now, like pro-Yoon and anti-Yoon sort of thing, right? So, he has experience in sort of, I'm not sure if he's actually, it's okay for me to, call him, amicable to everybody, but I guess it's fair that he did have a lot of experience trying to balance this out between different factions.
Now, you wrote his profile yesterday.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's a ladder politics sort of guy within the Conservative Party, but he's not been that amiable toward the opposition.
Understatement, right?
Yeah.
He has been having a very adversarial relations with the opposition party, calling them doing a legislative dictatorship, messing up with the country, basically. And he is best known actually for his controversial remarks, defamation that he got 6 months jail sentence for, although he wasn't detained for defaming late President Roh Moo-hyun.
Right.
And also he said something really bad about the Sewol Ferry incident.
Stop politicizing the kid's death.
He
apparently.
said something like it's getting tiresome.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly a very diplomatically put remark.
The Democratic Party said there was a slap in the face to name him as chief of staff.
They said that 악수를 청하고 싸대기를 때렸다. You try to shake hands and then with that hand you slapped on the face.
And you being the president.
Right. And another controversy that DP will constantly talk about whenever there's related diplomatic relations issue is Japan issue. Chung before on a social media post claimed that Joseon dynasty fell because of its own incompetency and corruption, and that Japan never really waged war against Joseon.
Well,
he's a revisionist historian.
There was no war between Japan and Korea.
Yeah.
Japan just came and took over.
So he uses this logic that many DP politicians call revisionist history views, new right position. So whenever there's a briefing from Chung about maybe Kishida and Yoon meeting, they will take issue with that. So so that's 비서실장, chief of staff. 홍보수석, the chief of public affairs, it seems like he's staying. And
Didn't he offer his resignation?
But he's staying.
Seems
reportedly this morning. 정무실장, the chief of national policy, was also hired. But prime minister, this is something we have to keep an eye on in the next week.
He offered to resign, Han Dok-soo.
He offered to resign, and so they are, it seems like, according to a lot of media reports, Yoon is trying to figure out who to tap as Han's successor. There were a few media reports at first about Park Young-sun, but they denied that. And after that, there was no news. So if there are any developments, we will write about it, and you will hear from us from your executive briefing in the morning.
And of course, next week, maybe this week or next week, there will be a meeting between Yoon and Lee.
Finally. So what's the latest? Like, is it delayed or postponed?
Well, the last time I
Canceled?
checked, the meeting was postponed, and from the presidential office, they're saying that they haven't hired all the people that they need for the post that had just been vacant.
I mean, which is fair.
Perhaps it's fair.
It's true.
Yeah. Now,
But
whether
now they have Chung Jin-suk, so maybe.
so maybe they will meet next week. But that at least that was the line that the presidential office gave. So maybe they'll meet sometime next week.
Right, we'll keep an eye on it.
And for more, please subscribe.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why they matter every morning in your inboxes.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for your weekly dose of insight. And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
And I'm John Lee. Stay connected, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on the Great Pro Podcast.